what is up? Jumping on here to answer the questions that you had posted. I also want to let you know that as I post these for you to watch, that there is another Q&A from the last shred that I did that is saved in my YouTube videos that you can watch as well, and it might have different questions. I would say there's a lot of the same questions answered, but there might be some other ones answered in there as well that are helpful. So if you want to watch that, you can do that too. So I'm just going to literally go down through the list here and answer your questions. I'll actually probably start with one or two questions that get asked all the time, and I'll talk about those first, then go through these. So the first question that gets asked hands down more than anything is about weighing your meat, cooked and raw. So in the shred guide, there is a section that goes through how to weigh and log your meat. So when you cook meat, it loses moisture as it cooks. So when you have 4 ounces of beef or chicken and you weigh it raw, when you cook it, it will not weigh 4 ounces anymore. It'll weigh less than that because it loses roughly 25% moisture. That's where that equation comes in. So when you are looking at the back of raw chicken and it says 4 ounces is 120 calories, 26 grams of protein, 0 carbs, and 2 grams of fat. So that 4 ounces, when you weigh that raw, if you were to cook that and then you weigh it after it's cooked, it's going to weigh roughly, again, it's an estimate, but it's very close and it's much more accurate than the other way. It's going to weigh around 3 ounces cooked. So when you are, say you are going to cook your chicken in bulk and store it in the fridge for the week, when you're weighing out that cooked chicken and you're wanting a 4-ounce portion so that you can scan the back of the nutrition label and log 4 ounces raw, you're actually going to be weighing out 3 ounces cooked, which is going to be the same thing as 4 ounces raw. I know it's confusing, but again, when you account for 25% loss of moisture, that's where that number is coming from. So that's why you use that equation. So again, it's not going to be exact, like you may cook 4 ounces raw and when you weigh it cooked, it may end up weighing 3.1 ounces or 2.97. Again, it's going to be very close and a very good estimate, but if you are cooking, say you are logging that you're eating 4 ounces of raw chicken, 120 calories, and you're weighing out 4 ounces of cooked chicken, you're actually overeating for what you've logged, because 4 ounces of cooked chicken is going to be closer to like 5 to 6 ounces versus 4 ounces. So that I wanted to answer first. I hope it makes more sense hearing it than when you read it, but again, you have to account for that loss of moisture. That's why the 25% equation is in there. So you can also just, if you want to search cooked chicken or whatever, you can do that, but I find it easier to log 4 ounces of raw chicken and weigh out 3 ounces of cooked chicken, and it ends up being the same thing. Now when I'm eating like sweet potatoes, I will search those as cooked sweet potato, and I put in USDA with it, so it brings up more accurate entries, and I always enter a G beside it, so it brings up stuff in grams, because that's personally how I weigh everything, is in grams. So that's just easier for me. Now if you're talking about like oats or rice, you're going to want to weigh those dry, again, because things like that will draw in water, so they're going to weigh more cooked so it's opposite of meat. So they actually hold in moisture when they're cooked, whereas meat loses moisture. So that's the first thing I wanted to answer. Then I'm going to go through the questions here. So how heavy are your weights? So this is going to vary from person to person, so it doesn't matter what the weight is that I use, because what's challenging for me might not be challenging for you or might be way too heavy for you. So if I use 30 pounds on shoulder presses, there are some of you that are just now, brand new to lifting, so maybe you're only using like 15 or 20 pounds. So again, you should use a weight that is challenging for you, but that allows for good form, and that it allows you to, I would say, the last 1 to to 2 reps are hard to push out. So if you are blowing through reps of 10 super easy, it's not challenging, then I would say it's time to increase your weight. But then at the same time, if you're lifting so heavy that you notice that your form is suffering, you know, you're risking injury there. So I would say back down the weight a little bit and just use really good form. Focus on muscle contraction, you know, for things like bicep curls, like you're using that mind-muscle connection and you're focusing on the muscle contraction while you're lifting. So form is everything. So I would say use a weight that's challenging for you and don't worry about what other people are lifting in terms of weight, because again, what's challenging for one might be super easy for somebody else or might be really, really difficult for somebody else. Should we weigh and measure once a week every day? So I will give you what I do personally and what I think works best. Again, this might be a trigger for some people, so if it is, then don't do this. But what I recommend is weighing daily if you can and using the average for the week. So when you look at you'll notice your weight is going to fluctuate literally every day from water levels in the body, and that's due to things like sodium, sleep, stress, our period, food volume. Even the time that you ate your last meal, say your last meal, like there's some nights that I eat my last meal at like 10 o'clock. You know, if I weigh myself at 8 o'clock the next morning, I might be a little heavier on the scale than I would have if my last meal was at 7, because my food is still undigested, sitting in my gut. So you have to account for those things when you're weighing. So again, when you're looking at the average over time, it's much more accurate. So if you can if you can't weigh daily because mentally it messes with you, then don't do it. That's where I was saying that. But the scale, it used to bother me. I don't really care so much anymore. I just try to really use it as data. So I weigh myself daily and I look at my weekly average. And that's what I compare week over week. I do that same thing with one-on-one clients. That's what I recommend for you guys, is weighing yourself daily or at least 3 to 4 times a week, using that average and comparing week over week. Measurements, you might not notice obviously a difference every day. So I would say measure, if you want to do once a week, you can do bi-weekly, or you can just measure at the beginning of the program, at the end of the program. Again, measurements aren't going to change near as frequently as like the scale is going to change every day. But again, it's not going to be fat loss that's shown every day. So that's why, again, we look at the average on that. So weight, if you weigh a few times a week or every day, again, use the average. And for measurements, I would say you can do those as often as once a week, but bi-weekly or even start and finish are going to be great for the measurements. What supplements do I use daily? I personally take a multivitamin. I take Bomar Greens every morning. That's literally the first thing that I drink before I do anything, before I have coffee or anything. I use, I can't even think right now, Bomar probiotics, and then a hair, skin, and nail vitamin as well. So that's what I take in terms of like vitamins. And supplements, I use EAAs or BCAAs during my workout. You can use those before, during, after your workout. You can pretty much drink on those whenever. And I do use, and this is all Bomar that I use. And then I also use their pre-workout. So again, those things aren't required. I do obviously use protein powder. I supplement with that occasionally. But yeah, those things aren't required. Again, they are supplements. They're nice to add to the mix, but they're not required by any means to see fat loss. Oh, and I use creatine. Sorry, I forgot that. So I do, I put 5 grams of creatine in my pre-workout, and I do that daily. For a superset times 4, do you do the same set 4 times in a row, move to the next each time, and then go through the entire round of supersets? Does it matter? So Andrea, if you have 2 workouts that are supersetted, so let's just say you have bench press with lateral raises, and it's 10 reps of each times 4. So you're going to do your 10 reps of your bench press, then you're going to little to no rest in between, go straight into 10 lateral raises. Then you'll take your 30 seconds to a minute break. Then you're going to repeat that again for 4 times through. Then you'll move on to your next superset, say it's shoulder presses and tricep pushdowns, and you'll work that the same way. So you'll do all your rounds of that superset before moving on to the next workout. Let's see, is it okay if we do workouts on different days? I have a packed work day tomorrow, so I was going to do Monday's workout today. Absolutely, you can do those when or however you need to move them around. There are some people, sorry, it started pouring the rain here. There are some people that need a rest day through the middle of the week. That's fine. Like, I would say to try to keep them in the order that they are in so that you've got adequate days in between, like your leg days. But in terms of like if you need to maybe not have a workout on Monday, but you can do it on Sunday, and maybe your rest day is on Monday, and then you work out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or however you want to do it. Totally fine. There is no right or wrong way to do that. So you can do your workout days, rest days, however you need to do those. Again, I would just try to keep them in the order that they're in. Let's see. How well do the breakfast recipes keep if you prep them at the beginning of the week? I think anything that I have listed in terms of a recipe or the recipe book should be fine, prepped at the beginning of the week, like the breakfast sandwiches, even the waffles, any of the oat bake stuff, all of that stuff will keep the entire week. What I will say is if you make like waffles, I would not microwave them to reheat them. I would heat them in the toaster so that they crisp back up. Or even the air fryer would probably be good too. Do we have to upload our beginning photos now or both of them at the end? Also, I saw that you said to upload the photo in the tracker section of the app, but I'm not sure where that is. So Christina, somebody answered your question for you on where the tracker is, but guys, it's that little orange button at the center of the app that'll take you to the tracker where you are able to upload your picture. You can track your progress in terms of entering your weight, your measurements, so you can see the little graph change throughout the program. But in terms of the photo, you do not have to upload it there. Just make sure that you took your starting photo with the sign, and at the end of the program, I will have a Google link for Google Drive where you're going to upload your testimony, your weight loss measurements, all of that good stuff with your photos, your starting and your ending. But the starting photo is just important to have at the beginning of the program with the sign that was mentioned. Do you make dinner for yourself separate than the rest of your family, or are there macro-friendly family recipes? Ooh, that's hard to say. It's a lot of F's. So Carrie answered, and that is a perfect answer because she does have 2 small boys and she is married, so she definitely is cooking for a family. But for me as well, it is myself, my husband, and my son. My son is a little picky, so he occasionally will eat what we eat. A lot of times we have to make him like different stuff. He's in that phase where he has like 4 or 5 things that he will only eat, and he eats those like for every meal. But for my husband and myself, he does eat what I eat, so we just might prepare it a little differently. So for example, if we're going to do burgers one night, we will always go with lean beef, so like 96.4, sometimes 92.8. There might be nights that I do a burger salad, or I might do my burger on the lettuce bun and save like my carbs for something else, and he might use an actual bun. Or same thing with like tacos, he might actually use a shell or a wrap, where I might do a taco salad. Again, so there's tons of different ways that you can eat the same meal. It's just yours might get, and when I say prepared, like really it's like the plating, you know, of it might be a little different. So, you know, it might be skipping on a bun and opting for the salad part. But yeah, you can, it's super easy to eat with your family. You just have to be willing to make the modifications. And I will say that my husband is a very picky eater, and he eats pretty much everything I make. There isn't anything that he's like, oh my God, that's so gross. Like, now if I do like the tofu noodles, he won't do that crap. But he does like the protein pasta and things like that. So again, there's tons of things out there. You just have to use the group for ideas. research. Pinterest is a great place to find inspiration. But what I do when I'm coming up with like recipes and things that I want, like if there's something that I want really bad from a restaurant that I'm like, man, I would love to have a Monte Cristo or from Cheddar's or something. There, you can make a super macro-friendly, lower calorie option at home. You just have to be a little more creative. So again, I do eat with my family. It just might be prepared a little differently. Let's see. I think I skipped past. Are we allowed one cheat meal a week? So I do not recommend cheat meals ever. And Siri thinks I'm talking to her. Sorry, guys. The reason I don't recommend cheat meals is because there is no parameters around that. If a cheat meal for one person could look totally different for another. So if you are somebody who is used to having a cheat meal, again, this is a 30-day program. So it's a very short time frame. If you're wanting to see maximum results in the 30 days and you're somebody who's used to having a cheat meal, I would highly suggest following the calorie cycle and allowing yourself more calories for either 2 days, or even if you want to restructure your calorie cycle and have just one high day, so that you're able to have like a bigger meal. But the thing with a cheat meal is, because if you're not tracking what you're eating, you can easily undo the work that you did through the week in terms of the calorie deficit that you were in. You can easily eat enough in a meal and not realize it by the time, if you've had, and this is where I say it's so different for different people, because a cheat meal for one person might mean that they get to order the appetizer, the meal, the dessert, the beers with it. So we're talking like that could easily be like a 4,000 or 5,000 calorie something, whereas for another person, their cheat meal might just be that they literally had a cheeseburger and fries. So it might be like a couple thousand calories for a meal. So again, depending on the distinction there between the meals, you could undo the calorie deficit that you created for the week. And this is where a lot of people mess up, and this is where I see people say, I keep gaining and losing the same couple pounds over and over. It's because that they don't have enough structure with their weekends. So they'll eat in a deficit all week long, and then the weekends come and they blow it on a cheat meal, or end up having back-to-back meals, or whatever that looks like. So they undo the deficit on the weekend. They end up probably sitting around maintenance for the week, and with the water weight and things, they've probably gained 2 or 3 pounds over the weekend. Then it takes them 2 or 3 days to get that water weight flushed out, and then they're literally starting back where they were. So again, I don't recommend a cheat meal really ever when you're dieting, just because it's not having any kind of parameters around it is very hard. And then again, we're talking a very short term, 30 days is a very short term program to be able to see maximum results. You're not going to see that if you're implementing a cheat meal. Let's see. In the shred guide, you provided the equation for measuring meats, so I already talked about this. Let's see. I was going to ask the same thing about, okay, so I already talked about the weighing and measuring meat. I have the upgraded version of MyFitnessPal, and I was wondering if I choose to do the calorie cycle, would I manually need to go in and adjust on Saturday and Sunday for the different macros? Yeah, you'll need to, yep, so somebody's answered you there. Thank you, guys. I noticed there's a fiber goal. Are we able to exceed it as a vegetarian? Yeah, so for a vegetarian, it is going to be, you're probably going to exceed your fiber goal just because you're obviously eating a lot more vegetables, a lot more beans and things like that. So yeah, you're able to exceed it. Now, what I will say about fiber, I give the minimum goal in terms of like for women, 15 grams minimum, and for men, 25. Now, it's roughly 14 grams per every 1,000 calories that you consume. So the more calories that you eat, obviously your fiber is going to be increased. Now, some people are sensitive to fiber. There's a very fine line that you can hit. So like I am one of those people that I cannot go too high on fiber, because if I do, I will not use the bathroom. It severely constipates me if my fiber is too high. Whereas also, if it's too low, I will get severely constipated. So I have this like fine medium of where I can hit. I do get my fiber from fruits and veggies, mainly. Like I don't add in fiber supplements. I eat enough fruits and vegetables that I'm able to get my fiber in that way, and that is how I feel good and how my stomach feels good and everything moves smoothly. There are some people and some clients that I know that can go to like 30, 35 grams, sometimes 40 grams of fiber, and it doesn't bother them. So you will have to kind of notice for yourself if you're having like GI issues, if you're having constipation, or maybe going too much, maybe really bad gas. Again, there's nothing that's TMI with this stuff, guys. I would say that you might look at scaling back the fiber, but for vegetarians, obviously, you're going to have a higher fiber amount that you're going to hit naturally just because of the foods that you're eating, and you're eating less like actual meat sources for protein. Do we count total carbs or net carbs? You count total carbs. I usually get asked this too about, do we track vegetables? You will track anything with calories. So yes, vegetables you're going to want to track because one, they do have calories, and two, they have fiber, and you want to keep track of all that. Again, if you're not tracking the fiber and you're overeating fiber, that's where you can run into like tummy issues. And if you're not tracking vegetables, you're not going to know if you're getting adequate fiber. So yes, on that. Let's see. Typically recommended 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body fat. My macros don't reflect this. Is there a reason it should be lower? Is it because I'm a vegetarian? Yes. If you're a vegetarian, your protein goal is not going to be what it would be for someone who is not vegetarian. So vegan, vegetarian, people that are even like dairy free, it's a little more challenging to get to that protein goal. So yes, if you're a vegetarian, that is 100% why. My carbs are so high, I can't seem to hit them at all. Maybe I get half in. I'm doing good in protein. I'm almost over on fat. I'm wondering if the carbs should be high or no. So Lisa, and I think I saw you say something too about asking why your carbs are so high. So carbs are the body's natural energy source. So nobody, I can tell you right now, there is nobody in this program whose carbs are high. It might feel high for you, but most people's are moderate. Some people are lower carb, just depending on if they have medical necessity for that. So like women with PCOS typically respond better with lower carb. If you're diabetic, things like that. So again, if you are somebody who doesn't have any like medical issues and you're younger, yeah, you're going to have a more moderate carb approach. Again, it's all relative, so it might feel high to you, but I promise you it's not high, considered high. So if you are struggling to hit your carbs, I would say that you're probably not eating enough fruits and vegetables. So adding things like that in. If you are going over on your fat, and maybe it's because you prefer higher fat foods, then just swap off and hit your protein goal and just stay within your calories and trade off with eating a little more fats and letting carbs be a little bit lower. But carbs, again, are the body's natural energy source. Carbs do not make you gain weight. Eating more calories than your body burns makes you gain weight. So for people that are terrified of carbs, again, the reason people are scared of carbs and think that carbs make you gain weight is because a lot of the foods that we tend to overeat on, like donuts and cakes and pastries, are carbs. They also have fat in them, but they are higher carbs, and so people automatically think, oh my God, carbs are bad, carbs make you gain weight. No, you're gaining weight because you're eating more calories than your body needs in terms of to lose weight or maintain your weight. So again, that's why I would just trade off if you're if you prefer higher fat. Do you recommend doing the cardio portion after the scheduled workouts, or try to space them throughout the day? So if you are at the gym, looking at the gym guide, and it has the hits of cardio like on the treadmill after the workout, I would highly recommend doing that exactly as it's designed. Now, if you're talking about the actual prescribed cardio that's recommended to add in the 2 HIIT and the 2 miss per week, you can trickle those in however you want. I would suggest doing cardio after your lift simply because you don't want to expend all your energy on cardio before you weight train and then weight train and not be able to lift as heavy as you would if you had saved your cardio for after. So I would say if you're talking about like the actual standard cardio, do that after you weight train. Do you ever do a protein shake as a meal replacement, just something quick and easy on the go? Sarah, I personally do not. I starve to death if I drink calories. You will never see me drink calories. If you do, it is because like something crazy's happened. I prefer to eat all my food, so all of my protein is actual like food. If you're somebody when you're dieting and you notice that you're hungry a lot, I would say that you're either likely eating very calorie dense foods, so they are foods that are higher calories for what you're actually getting. So like if you're comparing like, a 400 calorie salad, so it's a lot of volume, fruits or vegetables and volume that has protein and stuff in it, to two Pop-Tarts that are 400 calories. You're going to feel more full on the 400 calorie salad, even though they are the exact same energy amount, so 400 calories a piece. So I use that same thing with, protein shakes, protein drinks. I personally starve to death if I try to drink a protein shake. It just does not work for me. If you are somebody who you can drink a shake and you prefer that on the go or as breakfast or even after your workout, 100%, it is totally okay, and yes, do it. For me, it is, I just stay too hungry if I do that. My macros add up to this. Is this close enough? I definitely overthink the food. Yes, so again, I would say the good rule of thumb is to be within 3 to 5 grams of protein and carbs, either over or under. So let's say your protein goal, we're just going to say 100 so that it's a nice round number. If you hit 95 grams of protein for the day or even 105 grams of protein for the day, you're fine. For fat, I would try to keep it within 2 to 3 grams just because fat is worth more calories than protein and carbs are. Best protein powder for breakfast smoothies. I can only speak to what I use, which is Bowmar Nutrition. I love it. The flavors are amazing. It is got really great macros, high protein, and extremely minimal carbs and fat in it. And again, the flavors are just bomb. I know a lot of you in here use it, but I love it, and that's what I use. So my favorite flavors are wedding cake, the frosted cookie, and hot chocolate. But honestly, I have tried, and you should see my pantry, it's insane. There's not a flavor, I think, that I've ever tried from them that I do not like. When you take body measurements, should it be flexed or not? I would say relaxed, so do not flex. And I'm trying to see if I've missed any other questions here. My computer's not scrolling. So, hold on a second. Cardio question. Oh wait, hang on. Any secrets to MyFitnessPal and not having to reset your macros daily? I figured out how to disconnect my workouts, but every day it sets different macros. So somebody answered that for you. Okay, you got it figured out. I was going to say, I've never had mine do that, but I don't have my steps tracked or my exercise tracked on there. I did the June shred this past month, lost a few inches, but gained weight. Is this because my calories are too high? Is there something I should do differently? So, Molly, so I'm just going to explain this again for you guys, and this goes back to weighing and measuring yourself. So, when you're changing body composition, especially if you're somebody who you're new to weight training, as you're losing fat and building muscle, again, this is specifically for people who are new to weight training. If you've been weight training for a long time, like me, it's going to take me a lot longer to build muscle, and for anybody else that's been weight training for a while, it takes a long time to build muscle. If you're a newbie to weight training, you can actually do those two simultaneously and see really good results together. So, but here's the thing, a pound is a pound, regardless if it's muscle or fat. So you know how when you hear people say muscle weighs more than fat? It doesn't. 1 pound is 1 pound. They literally, 1 pound of muscle, 1 pound of fat weigh exactly 1 pound. They weigh the same thing. They just look vastly different because muscle is more dense and it takes up less space on the body. So again, your measurements will decrease and you will be smaller, but you might notice that the scale doesn't change because again, you're just swapping a pound for a pound, if that makes sense. So measurements are going to decrease, but the weight's not going to change. Now, if your scale is going up, again, I would say, are you weighing and looking at the average? Because if you're just weighing point A when you start, point B when you end, what if you're ending the week that you started your cycle and your weight is up 2 or 3 pounds because you're holding water? Again, that's why we weigh more frequently and we look at that data as an average week over week, month to month, those kind of things. So I would say to relook at your data and make sure that it's correct, for one. And two, everyone is in a calorie deficit regardless of how aggressive it is. So if you are gaining weight, you're not gaining fat. So gaining weight, again, is going to be water retention. Again, the scale is going to fluctuate literally every day. But you're not gaining fat unless you are eating over what is suggested for you and you're eating in a surplus somehow. So I would just make sure things that you can do are to revisit your data, make sure that you're weighing more frequently and looking at the average. The other thing is, are you eating out a lot? Because if you're eating out a lot, those foods, when we're logging them, again, even if it shows the nutrition facts online, it's still not as accurate as cooking at home, because when you're at a restaurant, when you're at Chipotle and they're giving you what you've logged as 4 ounces of chicken, they're not weighing and measuring those things for you. So you don't know if that's 4 ounces of chicken. It could be 5 ounces of chicken. It could be 3.2 ounces of chicken. Again, so if you're eating out a lot, I would cut back on eating out some just till you get those things figured out. But again, everyone's in a deficit. It may have just not been as aggressive of a deficit. So when we redid your macros for this round, it could be that they just needed to pull down a little more just to get things moving. So some people's bodies are a little more resilient to fat loss. They need a really aggressive approach to get things going. Some people, it can just be 50 to 60 calories to get things moving, whereas other clients may need 100 and some men may need 200 calories. So again, it just depends. That's a very individualized thing, but I would say to really look at your accuracy of logging, weighing and measuring food, things like that. And if you had any untracked meals, untracked days, eating out a lot, those things I would really tighten up on. Let's see, cardio question, how many times a week? Somebody answered that. So again, Jessica, for the cardio, that is recommended. It's not required, but for optimal results, I would recommend to get those sessions in and try to just knock it out right after your workout. Do you do any kind of intermittent fasting? I personally do not intermittent fast. I do not recommend fasting for anyone who has had any type of eating disorder, whether it be binge eating, literally any kind of eating disorder or disordered eating, simply because that's another rule that you're putting on yourself. Even though it's simply an eating window, if you're telling yourself, I can't have breakfast until noon, then you might be so hungry by the time noon comes around, you can't even prep what you were going to eat. You might be ravenous and just eat everything. So I personally do not intermittent fast. I haven't needed to. Now, if I will say, like if I'm on vacation or if I'm saving calories for a big event or like a big dinner and I want to save calories for the evening, I might fast through breakfast and have my first meal at lunchtime and fast like on occasion, but I do not do it regularly. If you do and you love it, you can keep doing it. Again, just remember, intermittent fasting isn't required. It's not necessary for fat loss. It is simply an eating window. Now, it is good, I will say, like, I try to end my last meal in the evenings where I give myself at least 12 hours for my stomach to, like, rest and not be digesting food, like, constantly. So I think it is good to, like, give yourself enough time, like, in the evening, like, when you're sleeping and things, and in between, like, your breakfast, to have, to give your GI system, like, some rest from digesting food. But I do not purposefully or strategically fast. I saw you mention Joseph's pita bread or lavish in several of your recipes. Where do you buy those? I get them at Walmart, and they are in the bread aisle. And you can also order them, and they are on Amazon. And sorry, it's storming here, so my computer's frozen. I see there's a 5-minute cardio warm-up for each of the workout days. Do you do hit or miss cardio on workout days, or save those for days? You can do those any day. You can do those on, like, your active rest day. You can add those in after a workout. It's of your choosing. This might sound crazy, but I will do, a lot of people might not do cardio on leg day because it's leg day, but I find it easier to knock out cardio right after a leg workout, so that the next day, if your legs are really sore, you're not having to try to do cardio while your legs are, like, super sore. So if you do it after your workout, I find it a little easier. But I mix in my cardio, like, on the weekend. I typically have, like, one full, like, active rest day, and then one of the other days will just be like a cardio only day. How long should we rest between sets? I would give yourself a minute. You shouldn't need longer than a minute. I would say anywhere between 30 seconds to a minute. How do I add more than one picture? This is where in the post at the beginning, I said you can only add one photo to the tracker. So in terms of, like, your before picture, you can only add, like, a front or a side. So again, those are just for you to view in that tracker. At the end of the program, you're going to send your front, side, and back pictures before and after to me. So what you put in the tracker is mainly just for your eyes only, and for you to be able to track your progress throughout the program. So it doesn't matter which one you upload in there, because you're going to send all those to me at the end. I believe that is all the questions that you guys had posted. So this will be uploaded, and again, you'll notice it'll be on YouTube, so you'll be able to view it anytime during the program. And like I said, if you want to view the other Q&A from my last shred session, it has some different stuff in there. Probably a lot of the same stuff, but it might be helpful as well. So I will upload this for you guys and talk to you all soon.